Chit-chatting cozies, cozy mysteries.
I am so excited to be talking to one of the longtime and very active members of the Cozy Mystery Book Club podcast, the amazing, the incredible Marta Ferguson, also known as @WordHoundWriter on Twitter and Instagram. And she is the author of Demeter West and the Ghost Town Glitch. Thank you for joining me today.
I am happy to be here. I'm very happy that we are chatting about Mango, Mambo, and Murder by Raquel V. Reyes. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
To offer a little bit of background to listeners, Marta recommended Mango, Mambo, and Murder as one of the first Chatting Cozies podcast book reviews. So this book was your recommendation. It just won an award. What made this book so special to you, and why did you recommend it?
Oh, that's a great question, Angela. I'm very interested in seeing all the possibilities opening up in genre fiction, whether that's mystery or science fiction or romance, but all the possibilities that are opening up in genre fiction right now for writers with diverse voices from diverse backgrounds. And so I was really excited to see Raquel V. Reyes come up as somebody who was a Cuban-American writer who wanted to bring some sense of that culture and background into the world of cozy mysteries, because I feel like when we all share of ourselves into the greater whole, then I think we're all enriched by the diverse voices that are brought into the mainstream. I think that can be a really great experience for everybody involved. So I was excited about that.
I will say that I liked the fact that the Cuban-American cooking components, her personality, the Spanish language inclusions, they were consistent from page 1 to the very end of the book. It was not
Absolutely.
as if it was sporadic. It was not as if it was introduced in one place and then it went away. I love some books sometimes when they introduce a character or they'll introduce some sort of quirk or something, and then all of a sudden it's very prominent and then it just goes away and you're like, I totally was looking for this thing that I was expecting and it was gone. It was just consistent throughout, and I really appreciated that because our leading lady Miriam, it just demonstrated who she was as a character. It showed consistent writing, and I think it made it very easy to then relate to her and root for her as a sleuther. So I love the fact it wasn't just something where it was, oh, I have a background as a Cuban-American and I'm going on with my mystery. It was part of her. It was part of her characterization. It was part of the dialogue. Even the cooking show that she develops has to do with her Cuban-American cooking style. And so it was integrated into all the different aspects of the book. So I really like the fact that it was there from the get-go.
Yep. The Caribbean Kitchen podcast. I'm hoping my Spanish is awful, so I'm hoping I have pronounced Reyes correctly. I'm gonna try for some of the other words that are used in the book, but it's the Caribbean Kitchen podcast that gets done in Spanish and in a kind of Spanglish, a Latinx blend of Spanish and English. I love the fact that our sleuther, I think Reyes has done something really smart in creating a sleuther who is a food anthropologist, because then it's not just a writer of color talking to us about bits of the culture she comes from as a kind of add-on, but because Miriam is a food anthropologist, then it's important and it's authentic to the character that Miriam would be talking to us about Cuban culture and particularly Cuban food culture, because that's her academic background. So I thought that was a really neat way to build that into the story.
Oh, that was exceptionally clever to have. One of the reasons her show became successful or resonated with the producer was the fact that she was telling stories with the food. It wasn't just a matter of cooking the dishes. She was offering insight. She was offering her own personal experiences. And so I think that really hit home for me as a reader, because that does differentiate what this book is doing and what this character is doing from all the other Food Network shows, Netflix, whatever they're doing. all the other foodies and their blogs. So I liked the fact that it was different. I like that she had individualized to this character. It wasn't as if she went on set and they told her what to do. It was a matter of, we're interested in hiring you for this brief segment, and she brought her own ideas to it. So I liked the fact that it was sort of the agency within the character herself. It wasn't just a matter of, we're the producers, we're the executives, we're the ones who are telling you what to do, go run with what we're telling you. I liked that it showed the character was the one who brought this to the table. So the way it was written into the story too, I think was, I'm giving Reyes another little shout out and gold star applause with that one.
I loved learning a little bit about, Un Mundo is fictionalized, but this, you have the Coral Shores elite and the mother-in-law in particular, who's like, oh, you're doing this little 2-bit thing.
Oh, we're going to have to talk about the mother-in-law in this book, because there is a lot to analyze with this lady. We're going to come back around to this.
But that Miriam gets to say, Un Mundo's in 122 countries. There's nothing 2-bit here, and I just thought, oh, that's such a wonderful perspective to bring to to a book that, cozies have a mostly white audience and a mostly white female audience. Just a nice little reminder that Spanish covers a lot of territory in the world, arguably a lot more territory than English, and that what might look like a 2-bit show to somebody in the Miami elite is actually a worldwide sensation. And all of the numbers ran like 67,000 shares and already, like 3,500 followers, showing just how big a deal a show like that can be on a Spanish language network.
I remember when Jane the Virgin on the CW aired and people thought, oh, this show's not going to last. This only has a very niche audience. And it exploded. And then there were academics writing articles and there were all these responses and it was so well received. And I just remember thinking, okay, you were wrong and this show is brilliant. For some reason, there's this perception of, oh, it's much smaller audience or it's a more niche idea. That is so not true.
Yup. So yeah, I thought it was just really wonderful to have a cozy mystery that just opened up into a blend, a family that where Miriam is Cuban-American, her husband is from Coral Shores, this bastion of, how do they describe it in the book, that stuck in the 1950s, the time warp that is Coral Shores. And I love that they managed to make a family together with little Manuel. And then, that was a lot easier in New York, and then bringing it back home and dealing with his family, where her family, who would have been 10 miles away, is actually now then in the Dominican Republic in Punta Cana.
So I do have a question. One of the reoccurring comments or sometimes negatives that I saw when I went on Goodreads for this book was the fact that there was so much Spanish. And I have to admit, as a reader, I did find it difficult. I first attempted to read this on my Amazon Kindle app, but I was actually having a lot of trouble. It was kind of taking me out of the moment as a reader because I would click into Google Translate. I didn't know what a lot of the words meant. I sadly don't speak Spanish. I wish I did. It would be so much fun. I would take part in all the conversations. I could watch all the telenovelas that I wanted. No captions needed. And I sadly don't speak Spanish. I would love to. I just haven't learned it yet. And so I did find it a little jarring as a reader because I would be in this scene and all of a sudden the Spanish would be dropped in and then I would have to go figure out what it meant. Then I would get back in. And so I actually put the ebook down and I ended up listening to it on audio. And for some reason, the audio and the Spanish, it worked so well together. It was seamless because it didn't take you out of the moment at all. Because I do think that there was a difference, for me at least, reading the Spanish versus hearing it, especially because she integrated it as the dialogue, as the inner monologue. It worked. I didn't have that same discombobulated effect. And so I was curious what your thoughts were with the Spanish as inner monologue and dialogue.
Actually, I thought her integration of the Spanish was great in the same way that she's given us Miriam as a character who is a food anthropologist. And so there's all these reasons that Miriam needs to talk to us and to anybody else in the novel about Cuban culture. I love that Miriam is the Spanish language parent in her home. And so I felt like as Miriam is teaching Manuel Spanish, Miriam is teaching me some Spanish too. And I think Reyes is very clever in that we get a lot of these little dialogues between Miriam and Manuel that are good opportunities
I
for us,
loved her
for
son.
English language readers, to get to pick up those little bits of Spanish also. And I felt like whenever there was Spanish, then there was a reiteration in the next paragraph or so in English of what had been said. So I was okay with it. I felt like it added more of the flavor of the community that she's capturing.
One of the things you just made me realize was the fact that her best friend was also a Cuban-American, and so they were able to speak Spanish with one another. And then I love how he's the Mambo, Zumba, he's the hybrid instructor. He's also able to then dive in and go back and forth between the English and Spanish conversation. And so I think that is something too, where she has the other characters who can reinforce the Spanish language components. I mean, I loved her best friend, Alma. I want a best friend like that. She's awesome. She came to her rescue a few times, and then Miriam got to save her in return. They have a great friendship and relationship, but she also has that Spanish component with the language and everything else.
Absolutely. And I was hoping, because you had read the audiobook, this was something that I kind of was retroactively aware of in the narrative. Without giving any spoilers, I will say, yeah, how we pronounce Alma's name becomes important. Is it Alma? Alma? What was your sense in the audiobook? How is that handled by the narrator?
That actually, I feel as if I didn't catch the clue as much. So the major clue, we can talk about spoilers in a little bit when it comes to this book. So we'll get into that for listeners. If you're interested, you can always stay tuned and we'll tell you who the bad guy is. But
Yeah.
for this clue, it was basically Alma, A-L versus Alma. And so it wasn't so much with the listening because it didn't click for me. It didn't jump out at me. It didn't really strike me. Whereas I think if I was reading and I saw it spelled differently, or I saw something underlined, italicized, something like that, I probably would have noticed that as a clue so much faster. It did not register with me at all. It wasn't until the explanation and the big reveal where I'm going, oh, now I get it. Okay, that makes sense. But until that moment, not so much.
And I have, the name like Marta that gets mispronounced all the time. I guess I'm sensitive to, okay, how did that name get pronounced? How was that handled? That I can tell when somebody's heard my name. I can tell when somebody's reading it from print, and I can tell when somebody has only looked at the first letter. So yeah, for me, that was a subtle point where, okay, somebody that's actually talked to Alma and would take the time to pronounce her name in the way she wants it pronounced.
I think part of the reason it didn't jump out at me as much is because there is differentiations with other people's names. So Miriam's husband, his name is Robert, but she calls him Roberto. She gives it that little Spanish twist. And then her son, Manny, I thought it was so funny when they referenced Sofia Vergara as her lookalike, and then her son's name is Manny. I'm going, this author has watched Modern Family, just throwing that out there. But her son's name, Manny, his middle name is Douglas, and then her mother-in-law is calling him Douglas instead of talking, saying, hello, Manny, hello, this is your first name. Even the rest of the family, the mother-in-law was introducing him as Douglas. So the fact that the other characters were getting known by different names as well, the mispronunciation didn't strike me as much because it wasn't as if that was the only mispronunciation or the only difference. Because even having the Robert versus Roberto, I kind of had a wait a second moment. So I think that made that clue even more subtle for me.
There are these wonderful ways that this book fulfills so many, kind of checks the boxes for cozy mystery expectations. We've talked about that a lot at book club, like what made this cozy, and certainly all the food. Oh my gosh, all of the food, the recipes in the back, definitely the cozy vibe. The fact that they're moving into this new place, and so they get to decorate the house and the furniture shopping, and I sort of loved the contrast of here's the furniture the mother-in-law thinks is appropriate, no, versus the furniture that they, as parents who understand that having a child means a white couch is a bad idea.
So I'm curious about that because Robert, he is the son, the mother-in-law, it is his mother. He is one of 3, I believe. He has at least 2 brothers. There was potential for a sister being referenced. I'm not sure if that was a sister or sister-in-law reference, but he has at least 2 brothers. She's the mother to 3 to 3 individuals. She should know that if you give a kid chocolate ice cream or if you give this kid anything, they are going to get it dirty, and you better be prepared for the spills and everything else. So I wasn't exactly sure why she thought a couch for a 4-year-old. That's a good one.
Yeah, she strikes me as the type of mom who either would have made sure her children didn't make those mistakes or who would have made sure there was somebody on staff to take care of those mistakes. So the fact that she's refusing to recognize, her kids don't have hired help in the house like she's got hired help in the house, and her kids aren't gonna raise their child the way that she raised her kids. Yeah, there's a generational gap. There's kind of a worldview gap there, I think, as well.
I have to admit, this mother-in-law, if they had lived closer when the 2 were dating, there's a very good chance Miriam and Roberto would not have ended up together there because this mother-in-law was not exactly welcoming. I was not a fan of her. If she is the victim in one of the future books, I wouldn't be that disappointed. Just throwing that out there. And so there's a scene in which she doesn't have enough. There's a scene in which she does not have enough seats at the dinner table, and so luckily, one of the cousins, whom I adore, cousin Gordon, I almost wanted this woman, I wanted Miriam to leave her husband and go be with him because Gordon is adorable. He cannot be a victim. I will start a petition. Gordon has to be protected at all costs. So he gives his seat up for Miriam so that she can join the dinner, and he will sit with the children, which I think he is adorable. So the fact that the mother-in-law did not apologize, did not make any effort to set another place setting, she was just someone you were rooting against.
Yep. And, spoiler alert, I don't think it's accidental that Reyes, the villain, as eventually revealed, is somebody whose worldview is aligned with that mother-in-law.
Oh, no, that did not go unnoticed. That did not go over my head. I thought it was funny because she actually spoke very highly of this person. And I'm going, okay, if this is someone you like, there's a very good chance that the rest of the world is not going to like this person. So that was just more confirmation of, we got to be looking at this character.
But as we come back to, all those things that make a cozy, we've talked about food, we've talked about family, and family tensions are also very much part of a cozy. How the sleuther and the police department get along seems to be very much a part of, one of those things to be negotiated in a cozy. So I really loved how Miriam and Detective Frank Pullman managed to work things out. That Pullman's like, oh my God, you're just going to be one of those people. All right, I can use that.
He keeps calling her his Veronica Mars, and every time he sees her, he calls her Veronica. And eventually she goes, well, I thought it was more of a Jessica Fletcher. I loved Murder, She Wrote, so I was going, hey, Jessica, I love that reference. So
I loved all the Murder, She Wrote references. Yes, and Jessica Fletcher is the white lady who keeps tripping over bodies.
Yeah, you don't want to go on a vacation with Jessica. I love how Miriam's moving to this new town. If she was a Jessica Fletcher, that entire town should just pack its bags and leave and be like, Cabot Cove, the population of just Jessica Fletcher and the sheriff. Everybody else should just vacate.
Well, right. And again, spoiler alert, the fact that there are 2 bodies in the narrative, and that after the second body appears, Miriam even says, gosh, Coral Shores and Cabot Cove have this vibe where, she lived in New York all this time and was never anywhere close to a murder. And here she's been in Coral Shores for 2 weeks. And she's been nearby when there were 2 different deaths.
You just
But
reminded me. There was one book one time or one TV show, I can't remember the narrative, but someone even said, you don't find bodies underneath pavement in New York. They're always finding the bodies in small towns.
yeah, Cabot Cove, dangerous place to live. And I think Miriam is starting to feel that way about Coral Shores, dangerous place to live.
I liked the fact that the sheriff was not, well, he wasn't even a sheriff, he was a detective. I think talking about Cabot Cove, I'm like, where's Sheriff Topper?
Right.
I was going, where's Mort? I liked how Pullman was not an airhead cop. And that is one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to cozy mysteries. When there is a detective or there is a sheriff and they, you're amazed that they're able to get up in the morning and not die. I mean, they would fall over. I don't know what they would fall over, whether it's their own 2 feet or whatever. They would not be able to actually exist in the real world because they are written as just completely moronic. And I liked the fact he was actually doing his job in this cozy mystery. He was following the leads. He went to one of the lectures and he was sort of standing in the back trying to get a feel. He was doing his interviews. He did follow-up interviews. And he even solved the mystery before the rest of us. So I was inwardly, I'm cheering, going, oh, the cops finally solved one.
Yep. And so I thought the way they negotiated working together, that he just decided to consider her one of the tools in his toolkit. Here, I'm going to give you assignments. If you're going to get yourself in trouble and mess around with this stuff anyway, at least give me a chance to give you a little direction.
It was almost as if he knew that she had so much independence and agency. He's like, I might as well give you a sense of direction with that of, okay, if you're going to be sleuthing and taking this on by yourself, because I know you're not going to be dissuaded by me. Okay, let's look into this. I mean, he knew he wasn't going to stand in her way. No matter what he said, she was going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I liked how we met Cousin Gordon as a police officer on a little bicycle, and then eventually comes back with a police car, and he does the lights to make Manny happy. I like that Cousin Gordon was on the force, so that made me appreciate him even more.
Absolutely. And I think, again, things that make a cozy, all of those really lovable minor characters. And I think Gordon definitely fits into that mold. He's somebody that we're so happy we met along the way.
Well, I just love this guy so much. He was so much more enjoyable for me as a person, as a reader, than the husband. In the back of my mind, I'm going, okay, just leave Robert and go with Cousin Gordon over there. Just go be with him. Manny adores him. He just bought him this little toy cop car. We're not really sure if the husband's having an affair or not. We're doubting him the entire book. Meanwhile, Gordon is just adorable from beginning to end. Every scene he's in, he just made me smile. So I was rooting for him to be the love interest.
Yeah, I liked Roberto. I did feel like, okay, we're having this couple who appear to love each other, who appear to have made this like big decision to move from New York to Miami together.
You are much more understanding than I am, because I did not like him till the last 20% of the book.
They're not talking to each other, and that I get for plot reasons. They're not talking for plot reasons, but I think it's really hard to have it both ways. Oh, they love each other, they're close, but they're just really not communicating at all right now. And I mean, okay, my family and I have been through multiple moves. Moves are really stressful, and nobody's doing their best communicating during a move. But I feel like they're not communicating, not because things are all mixed up and they're both stressed. They're not communicating because Roberto has made the decision not to communicate certain things. And that if there's anything,
it wasn't even a good one. It didn't even make sense. It wasn't as if it was for her own good. It wasn't as if he was trying to save her heartache. He was just not telling her because he thought this was easier for him, basically. When it came to Robert, he was pretty much just keeping things to himself for the sake of keeping them to himself. He was talking about moving and changing his job, his career, and that's something you usually talk to your significant other about. That's not usually a surprise unless you're going, honey, I just got this big promotion or job offer, and then you tell them over dinner or something. You make a big celebration of it. You don't usually throw it in there as, oh yeah, I'm changing my entire professional track over here.
Yeah, I was, this concern that how would it, I tried playing it out in my head, like, how would it have played out differently if he had brought Miriam into the secret. Okay, so here's the thing. We have to kind of work these people to get them to do the right thing for the environment, to get them to do the right thing by us. So I'm going to have to stay late at the club playing golf. I'm going to have to hang out with some folks I don't like that much. And I'm trying to think where the downside would have been
There
to
wouldn't have been.
bringing Miriam into that. And I think that's the, there's a downside if we as readers know that's going on, because then we're in on more of the plot points, that it was more fun to hold those reveals as plot points. But yeah, I think that's the, maybe as much as I really enjoyed this novel, that Roberto making the decision not to bring Miriam into things is a piece of it that feels kind of false to me, given the rest of the character of their relationship.
Well, even then, it was one of those, if they would just have a conversation, all this drama can be alleviated. So her worrying about him having an affair, all those lines, it almost felt as if it was filler to me in that way, because it was not necessary. It wasn't as if, he was spending time with Juliet trying to figure this out, and blah, 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 blah. It was just a matter of him not letting his wife in. And the other reason why I think your logic works with this is because she just moved to this town. She only knows one person, and that's her best friend. And unless she told the best friend, and if he asked her not to and she doesn't tell her, she literally has no one else to tell this secret to. Because we know she's not going to go talk to the mother-in-law. We know that's not happening. So this big idea that she might reveal something and implicate this plot of how we're going to save the butterflies, because that's one of the things they're trying to say.
I do love that. I love that we're going to save the butterflies.
She wasn't going to blow up their plan. And the fact that he even thought she would, I would have been offended if I was her. Because he put her through too much. She's thinking, is he cheating on me? She's getting stressed out. She's getting anxious. And, it wasn't the cost worth, pro, con, weighing your options. I don't think it was worth it.
The way I explain it to myself, the way the novel works as written in that way, is that Roberto is so massively stressed about having moved back and moved into this job that's not a great fit. But there's his family, and there are all of these family pressures that were kind of easy to forget when he was in New York. And he sees a way to make all this work out, and he decides he's going to take care of it and not burden Miriam with the problems, because he can do this. He can fix it. Dude. You can, but you're going to really, really upset your wife in the process. You got to let her in on some of this. So, I see the argument for Roberto proceeding as he did, but it doesn't make him look very bright or very tuned into Miriam. So
I agree with that. Again, all the more reason why I was rooting for Cousin Gordon. And I have to admit too, when I did read about the husband, the content, what I was reading was not necessarily endearing me towards him. There was even, we're spoiler alert, we're going to talk about something here. He slept with his third cousin, and he just flat out came out and said that. And I was very struck by that. I was not expecting a cozy mystery to throw that in there. And he mentioned sleeping with her when they were in high school. So I'm going, okay, so you're also sexually active at a younger age with a person you shouldn't have been sexually active with. Okay, let's have that thrown in there. And he also called her babe a lot, which I also was not a fan of. It wasn't just, baby doll, baby, and integrated other nicknames. He called her babe a lot. And for some reason, it made me, I got a little angry on her behalf.
Interesting. The babe reference didn't bother me. But we've been talking about ways in which this really, checks off a lot of cozy boxes. There are some ways in which this is a little bit outside what you might expect in a cozy mystery. Frank discussions about their sex life, about his past relationship with this other person who happens to be his third cousin.
If you're not cringing as a listener, I'm sorry. I mean, you could have taken out the third cousin reference, or at least explain there was no blood relation. Please do that in future books.
Yeah, the cousin thing. Well, and I think also we're supposed to see that while there's a taboo around that in mainstream or white American culture, it sounds like that taboo might be even stronger in Cuban American culture. I mean, I think that might have been a vibe we were supposed to be getting was nope, not the
Uh,
cousins.
I support that
Um,
vibe.
mhm,
It just
mhm.
jumped out at me, and it wasn't even really part of the conversation after the fact. It was there, and then it wasn't, and they moved on. I'm going, I'm not moving on from this. This just jumped off the page. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I think I read too many 19th century novels where they all are supposed to be marrying their first cousins. That I'm like, okay, no, that there's a lot of reasons that doesn't work, but really that's only been the last 100 years we've decided that doesn't work.
I was an English minor. I've read the books. I understand the classics, but it just jumped off. It just jumped off the
Right.
page at me because not only was it the third cousin reference, it was the fact he just said, "Yeah, we slept together once in high school." That's not usually a conversation you have in cozy mysteries. So I think it was jarring, probably more so in that regard too, because having conversations about your sexual history is again not a very cozy thing for most readers, and it's just not something that's been done in the genre a lot as far as I've seen as a reader. So I think that's why it jumped out so much at me. I mean, they've referenced having feelings I'm attracted to, and I
Right.
just read a book, The Crack. I'm laughing. She loves her man in the kilt. She's very attracted to him with the kilt. She thinks his
Right.
legs are very attractive because she can see them because he's wearing the kilt. We've had references before about things like that, but it's not usually, oh, here's my past right on a plate.
I think we had those conversations around the cracked spine, the Lynn Cahoon, One Poison Pie. There's a little more frankness about their sexual histories, or a little more heat in the discussion of their attraction to each other. So yeah, it depends on kind of how wide you broaden that cozy label, because I think that is something that is part of a lot of cozies, but it doesn't happen. It's not as common as it's not an expectation of the genre.
Yes, that's entirely true. There's a book, Lisa and Lace, and it's so funny because she she has this line of dialogue going, and he had that look in his eyes, and then you flip to the next chapter, and they're getting out of bed, and like, or they say something like, "Oh, he just got out of bed to take a shower." And you're like, "Okay, we know what happened. We can fill in the blanks." And
Right.
so, same thing with this book. There was an entire scene at the beginning of one chapter. I'm trying to think how to say this in a very polite way. At the very end, it says 2 months later, and you find out she's pregnant. It's almost as if Reyes was like, yeah, we're going to figure out when she got pregnant and how this happened. I mean, I could have filled in that blank without you telling me, oh, we made up, and that's why I didn't sleep that much last night. She even said, oh, I got out of bed and then put on my nightshirt. It wasn't exactly subtle references. Yeah, I just found it. It said, so we kissed deeply before getting out of bed. I slipped into a nightshirt and went to check on Manny. He was still asleep. Sally reported that the cousins had played dress up, and so on and so on.
Right.
So she says she puts on the nightshirt after getting out of bed, when usually it's the other way around. So there were a few references like that at the beginning of the chapter. And so then when she comes back around 2 months later and finds out she's pregnant, we know how that happened.
My favorite nightshirt reference, and again, hey, this just won the humorous cozy mystery, when she's noted these women who always walk together on the street past the house, and there's a couple different points in the novel where she acknowledges this group of women who always walk by. She's so relaxed. She's hanging out in this nightshirt. She's just found something she's looking for. She holds up the item. She waves out the window to these women who are walking by, and then she realizes she's got no bottoms on. She's wearing nothing but her nightshirt and waving at these women out the window. And she's like, oh, well, yeah, that'll get the gossip mill going.
I mean, granted, the gossip mill was already pretty busy with 2 dead bodies, so at least that was probably lower on the spectrum for that week.
But I thought that was a good example of the kind of humor in the novel that, well, yeah, okay, I've given the gossip mill something to talk about.
I'm trying to remember if I had any laugh out loud moments. I feel as if I had a lot of, oh, he's so cute with Manny. I had a lot of, aw. I think I had most of those moments. I thought things were cute and adorable. I mean, with him, everything was, Everything was so cute. Every line of dialogue, he made me smile.
I chuckled a lot about Miriam and her producer, who I think is Delvis. Um, that interplay between, I chuckled actually at the moment when Miriam realizes, oh, she is at the top end of her own demographic. She's an older millennial. So as she, they keep thinking about how to draw in the millennials and the Gen Zs, and she realizes, oh, I am a millennial. That made me chuckle. The milk mustache references as she starts to develop a fan base, and they signify the milk mustache. That made me chuckle too.
Oh, it was cute. She had fans, and she's going, I have fans. She's got an ego boost. It was really cute when someone walked up to her and was going, oh, I know you. That was really cute.
And I cook a lot. And so as she's going through the food prep and the cooking prep and do I have this? Do I have this? Do I have this? I chuckled a lot about, okay, no, of course you would forget you need glasses to put the liquids in. Nope, that's got to be on the list if you're doing a cooking show kind of thing. Yeah, I think because those things, not that I'm doing a cooking show, but because that I identified, I guess, with that tendency to miss the obvious. And I love that she could kind of laugh at herself about that, and then just pull things together and just go for it. And I love that, Alma has gone out of the way to help make these connections for her. And instead of shying away from this kind of intimidating opportunity to do a cooking segment on a TV show, she's like, okay, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I really love that about Miriam.
So one of my notes actually kind of plays into what you were just saying, and it has to do with the fact this book is very much about her day-to-day life and her regular interactions, and that's where a lot of the fun comes into play. But to me, that wasn't necessarily part of the mystery. It wasn't her actively sleuthing. Some of it was just her living her life, and it kind of reminded me more of a chick lit book sometimes than a cozy mystery. So I was curious if you had any thoughts on that, because it almost felt as if the mystery was a second or third plot line instead of the first.
Oh, that's interesting. I felt like the mystery was well threaded through everything, but I liked that we got a sleuther. I think there's the tendency in a cozy mystery that our sleuther gets all caught up in sleuthing. And I have had moments in cozy mysteries where I was like, don't you have to be at work? Aren't you supposed to be doing something else? And I really felt like Reyes filled us in on all the other stuff Miriam is doing while she's also trying to solve these mysteries. And so I kind of loved it that we got to see, and I love having a mom sleuther. I thought that was so much fun. That, we have all of these sleuthers who have cute critters as companions. But Manny is Miriam's cozy companion. Manny is the one who kind of gets pulled around to go do this and that and follow up on the other. And yeah, so
he's
I thought
one of
that
my
was really
favorite fictional children. He was just so cute. He was so well behaved. And I loved it when he would repeat himself, because he reminded me of an actual child. You can tell that the author, she's familiar with children, with the backgrounds. It was nothing out of the ordinary with that, but it was so true to real life. It made me smile. And the fact that we find out she's pregnant at the end of the book too, we very rarely have a pregnant sleuther or a sleuther with a newborn. The friends of sleuthers, the Watsons to the Sherlocks, will have the babies, the kids. And so I think you're hitting the nail on the head with that, because a lot of cozy mysteries, the kids are already out of the nest, they're on their own, or they're not at that point in their life yet. So I definitely think that this makes it unique in that regard.
And I thought it was neat too that we see Miriam and Manny tackle lots of new situations. They're new to Coral Shores, and so they're trying out childcare here, and Manny's getting left with somebody else's kid care provider here. And watching how carefully Miriam navigates that, showing that it is possible to do those things, and that there's, because I think there can be this binary thinking around either you're a working mom and your kid is in somebody else's care all the time, or you're a stay-at-home mom and you always have care of your kid. That seeing Miriam as somebody who's in the gig economy, I think was terrific, because we see her both having some real quality time at home with Manny, particularly breakfast in the morning. Like, what do you want for breakfast? The pancakes. But we also get to see Miriam as a working mom who's like, okay, I've got to have childcare for the kid, or I'm not going to be able to do what I've got to do here. So I thought that was a really, in kind of a meta way, that while Miriam is worried about how her podcast, Miriam and Delvis, her producer, are worried about how her podcast might appeal to millennials and Gen Zs, I feel like Reyes and her publisher have done some careful thinking about how the novel might appeal to millennials and Gen Z. Yeah, I think the standard cozy audience is probably more my age and older rather than my age and younger. So I think it's neat. I've read several cozies in the last year or so with the Cozy Mystery Book Club, where I feel like we're getting cozies that might appeal to a younger audience. And I've read several others as well.
The millennial cozy is how it's being referred to. There was a reference at one point in the novel when she references self-care and self-love, and that jumped out at me because that is much more of a millennial sort of reference. The whole idea of self-love and self-care has only really been around, I want to say, the last 10 years or so. That's kind of a new idea, a new way of phrasing things. People always would say, take time for yourself, decompress, but the whole way of saying, oh, it's self-love time, do the self-love. And I thought that really jumped out at me when her best friend Alma came over and said, let's go take this class together. And she went to go take the class. She made sure Manny had the childcare at the gym. The gym girls, she said they were very professional, and it was so cute because she said, oh, they're college age, but they seemed very poised. And so she even kind of gave you that background of why she felt comfortable leaving him there. But she didn't feel guilty for wanting to go exercise. And I think that is something that reoccurs a lot with women, feeling guilty for doing things. Oh, we're guilty for taking time off, or guilty for doing this. I like that she was able to go exercise. Her child was taken care of, and that was that.
Absolutely. And the not having to rely on this very difficult mother-in-law for that childcare. And in fact, she decides she's okay sending him to the library with the mother-in-law, and then it's not okay to have him at the library with the mother-in-law, so she follows up that impulse and is glad
that mother-in-law. I would have offered to bring the parents back and be like, hey, I will pay for your new house to be down the street so you can come back and help me and be in my life. So that this awful woman is not. I was not a fan of the mother-in-law. Again, if you listen to this podcast, Raquel, you have my full permission and blessing to kill her off sometime down the road in the series. So we do have to talk about the mystery unto itself. Did you know who the murderer was? Did you know the reasons why?
Well, what I thought, since we're just full on into spoilers at this point, from early on, I was worrying about the colors of the drink packets. And I think that just comes from having read and written mysteries, that this felt like clue, this is a clue. Why are the drink packets different colors? I can't say I knew it was because one was cocaine and one was tea.
Yeah, cocaine is also different for a cozy. That's something that's not usually a thing. You might reference and say someone had, a history of drugs, but cocaine is usually not written into the narrative. My brain did not think cocaine either.
But we're in Miami, and again, this is part of how is the mystery integrated into its setting. And I think, that's a way in which the drug trade in Miami has been a problem for a long time. And so we're getting a little slice of it here in this cozy mystery. So, but yeah, did I solve it? I knew that it must be connected to those drink packets. There must be something there. And I actually love the way that Reyes kept us off balance with the two deaths, because I felt like that was very skillful, that the second one that looked more like murder was not the murder. It was the first one that didn't look like murder that was the murder. And that, I think, wow, that was very skillfully handled from a mystery plot standpoint, that even beyond giving us red herrings, to have us wondering, is it murder, is it not murder? And in the end, discovering that there may not have been intention at all in either death. There was certainly intention to harm in the case of the first death, but whether that intention to harm was I think it's left. I think we're left leaning toward, actually there was no intention to murder in the first death, but there was intention to harm, intention to manipulate and control. Whereas the second death, which looked so much more classically like a murder, we end up finding out, ooh, actually there were a lot of other factors involved there. That takes some chops.
I have to go back to the beginning with this one. So I'm a big fan as a cozy mystery reader. The sooner the body drops, the more invested I'm going to be in the mystery, into the victim, into the sleuther. I like it when the body drops early on in the novel. If it's the 30% mark and the body hasn't happened yet, I'm going to be looking for that body with every other sentence. And so I liked that the first event happened very quickly, but we're kind of pulled along because nobody is really interested in this woman falling into her salad plate. This might have been the funny moment. This might have been my laugh out loud, oh my gosh, what is going on? So Miriam, our leading lady, is sitting next to the first victim, Sunny, and Sunny literally just passes out into her salad. And she even says she got some of the salad on her face with the mayonnaise or something. And so this woman falls into the plate of food, and nobody in that banquet hall reacted. And you're kind of going, is this a weird horror movie? I mean, what is going on here? Why are these people not rushing to her aid? And that really struck me. And so it had to do with the fact that Sunny had a history of passing out from not eating. She had anorexia, bulimia issues. She had a history of drug problems. And so none of the characters reacted. And so as the reader, I'm going, what is wrong with you people? I was really intrigued by the fact that none of them were jumping out of their seats, running after her, trying to call 911 frantically. They all just sort of looked over and like, oh, that's Sunny for you. I thought that was so different from any other cozy mystery. Usually the body stumbles in and everyone rushes to them. They're rushing to call the police. They were so lackadaisical about the first event. I was just stunned by that.
Right. And I think, we have a lot of cozies that are set in small towns. This is a cozy set in a village within, Coral Shores is within the greater Miami area. But I think there's still some big city vibe things. The cocaine is part of the big city vibe. The diet culture and the prevalence of that diet culture is part of that big city vibe. We're in a place where it's women pass out because they're doing one fad diet or another so commonly that it's not a big deal that Sunny passes out in her salad. It's not even that big a deal that Ileana passes out on the air later. Because where everybody suspected Sunny had gone face down in the salad because of a diet thing. That is actually why, again, spoiler alert, that is actually why Ileana topples over later. Because she's been fasting for 2 days. So I think we're seeing that it's an aspect of that bigger city culture.
The second death happened in a public forum as well. They found her after, oh my gosh.
Right.
So both deaths happened publicly, which is also something that I was intrigued by. It was almost as if all of the characters there were suspects, because if everyone's in the room and it's a public setting, everyone had access to the victim. So that kept the killer momentum rolling. It left who's the red herring? Who's the killer? What's going on here? So that was very clever as far as writing a mystery goes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, because you've even got Ileana is actually the third because Elliot drops. Her collapse maybe looks more like distress, I think, than either the first or the third collapse. So there is appropriately more concern there. We just don't know that, wow, there's all this other stuff about her liver condition, and the herbs that she's taking, and all the ways that that gets worked out. So again, I think that's all very skillfully plotted. That's all very skillfully arranged to keep us on our toes, to keep us wondering, is this doctor doing this on purpose? Doesn't it seem counterproductive for him to kill these patients? And yet his patients keep dying. Why would he do that? Would somebody be setting him up? Why would somebody be setting him up? So I think we've got all of these ways in which we've got suspense and suspicion being built around the deaths, around the doctor, and then not until later in the novel around the actual killer. But yeah, I think the rumor mill and the importance of the rumor mill in this is a cozy mystery kind of trope too, that always, the rumor mill is leading people to believe that Alma could be responsible for these deaths. And she does get arrested because she's got evidence on her that's tainted with cocaine. But it seems like more than that little bit of something. It's these rumors that have followed her around after her own brother's death, because she is from Hialeah and not Coral Shores proper, because she is Cuban-American, that Alma is a suspect, as much or more than the physical evidence that's found on her.
And I adore Alma, so she has to be protected at all costs. Her and
Absolutely.
Cousin Gordon, those are the two.
Yeah.
I'm not letting her kill off. And obviously we got to keep Manny, because Manny's adorable. He's the child. Children in COZIES, nothing can happen to them. Animals in COZIES, you got to protect them. So I have my two characters, and Alma's one of them. I will say, at the very end, I was a very happy cozy mystery reader, because little Manny, who had been wanting a dog, got a cat. And it turns out that the husband, who was anti-dog, he loves cats. The husband apparently was the reason that Manny did not have a dog. And the entire book, from start to finish, Miriam's going, oh, we can't have a dog because of Roberto. He doesn't like dogs. And the inner monologue is going and going. And then at the very end, Manny is handed a kitten, and Roberto goes, oh, I like cats. We have the cozy companion now, people. She is
right. And how did they not have that conversation before? Because cats are a lot easier to have in the city than dogs. As a dog owner, you know this.
The fact that they got a cat at the end, and he was able to get the cat when it's still a kitten, so he's going to grow up with the cat. Oh, my heart.
Yep. Yeah. And I really felt like, and this is another cozy mystery thing, the number of characters we meet, including Stormy Weatherman, who brings the cat there at the end, that I feel like I found myself wondering, okay, she's given us a big cast. Who's going to be involved next time around, and how are they going to be involved?
I will say there was something to this writing where we had the large cast, but I was not confused. That was something that's worth noting, because sometimes in mysteries or sometimes in first books, you will have a huge list of characters and they will start to run together. There was one book we read for the Cozy Mystery Book Club where 3 characters all had names starting with S, and I wanted to throw the book at the wall. I was so angry and so annoyed, and they all sounded alike with their dialogue. I was beside myself. I'm going, this is not fun. And so the fact that all these characters had different names, had different personalities, jobs, every single one of them was just unique. There was no way to confuse them with one another.
I think, again, just very skillfully done.
That's saying that you probably gave this 5 stars.
This was one of my 5-star reads this year. I really enjoyed it. I really thought there's so many things that she's doing, that Reyes is doing so well in this book. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
In other words, there's a very good chance we're going to have a follow-up episode talking about book 2.
Wonderful. That would be really wonderful. I thought this was a terrific story. Again, extremely well-plotted mystery, immersive characters, immersive setting. In science fiction, we talk about world building, but I feel like I'm a sucker for a great setting, whether that's in a mystery or whether that's in a science fiction novel. And I think the setting here was extremely well built.
Well, it sounds as if we're going to have to revisit it sometime.
Absolutely happy to.
I think we talked about all of my notes. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
We talked about all the Murder, She Wrote references. I'm looking, I read it on my Kindle, so I love being able to highlight things and make notes. And so I'm actually looking through my little Kindle notebook here.
I had one of the Jessica Fletcher references. I copy and pasted this into my notes. I love how it just says fail, exclamation point, fail. Sleuthing was harder than I'd anticipated. What would Jessica Fletcher do if she were in my position?
Yes.
I thought about the hours and hours of Murder, She Wrote episodes that I'd watched with my mom. Angela Lansbury made it look so easy. I love that quote. That is one of those, speaking to my sleuther hearts over here, all cozy mystery readers would be all the applause. That line, so true. Angela Lansbury, she is the goddess divine of cozies as far as characters go with Jessica Fletcher. And she does make it look so easy. Sometimes she'll have a fake button going, oh, I bought this at the store and you thought it was yours. I got you to confess. She has the best twists, lines. She's awesome. So Murder, She Wrote references always make a book better. Just saying.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we've covered everything I had. I guess we haven't talked specifically about the recipes in the back, but there are recipes in the back. They look delicious. Yeah, I'm not sure I'll be able to find all the ingredients here in Iowa, but I know that I can look around for, all right, what would be close? What could I substitute? And I will do what I can from there.
I think I did realize why I love my baking cozies. So as much as this is a food cozy, as much as I appreciate the food references, I am not a huge papaya fan. And that was really the only thing that I was eligible to enjoy because I'm a vegetarian. And at one point she has a meal and she's going, I have 6 different types of meats. And you know that it's supposed to be something that's mouth-watering. And even the description, I'm reading it going, I know I'm supposed to really want this food that she's making right there, but I just don't because it's got the meat. And she's talking about duck at one point. So there's a lot of meat references. So that made it a little bit more difficult for me to live vicariously through the text.
The sancocho stew, which she points out is a special occasion. There is a lot of meat in the sancocho. I think probably the tamale recipe at the back. I think there's meat in the tamales, but I know it's possible to do tamales without meat also. I'm flipping through the recipes as we talk.
We have sloppy joes. We have, I also don't drink, so the sangria is also out. So I have a little bit more limitations when it comes to the recipes at the back of the book. I think maybe in the future, I'm going to be on the lookout going, okay, which recipes are across the board with, this can work for people who are dairy intolerant. This can work for people who are going vegan, vegetarian, or all the other things. I'm going to have to create a list of some sort. But I do like the fact that there are recipes in the back of the book. Anytime a cozy has recipes, it gets a bonus point.
Right. And when you find yourself thinking, ooh, that would be really tasty. Yeah.
If you do try and make the recipe, you're going to have to post about it on Twitter and Instagram because I'm going to want to see how this turns out. I was going to say, you love this book from inside out to the recipes.
I really did, and it's, I think when we've got a number of people in the book club, including somebody whose handle is Cooking with My Cozies. But I think we have a number of people in the book club who do enjoy picking up the recipes from the back of the cozies and using them more regularly. And I think that's such a neat way to get to interact with a fictional world, You
can get closer to it through the food.
Yeah, I've been tempted on a number of occasions. I'm trying to think if I have actually cooked anything out of the cozies that I've read the last couple years. And I don't think that I have, but I think the recipes here are very tempting. I think the clam chowder out of the Jenn McKinlay Library Lovers books, that sounds really good to me too.
And I think it gets an extra bonus point because not only is it a recipe, it is Sully, who is a heartthrob. It is Sully's clam chowder recipe. So extra bonus points because Sully is one of my new book boyfriends, in case people didn't know. I love him.
Absolutely. Sully's an excellent book boyfriend.
When that love triangle happened, I was so angry. And then I realized, hey, if Sully's single, he can be mine, even though he's fictional. So good times.
Yeah. I think that about covers it.
Well, I'm so happy and so appreciative that you took the time out of your day to talk to me about this cozy mystery. And this book was recommended by you, so extra shout out and appreciation that this entire podcast episode was your pretty much brainchild. So extra applause.
I'm so happy I could help. I just thought it was so much fun.
And if you guys are not already following Marta, please do. I'm still learning the intricacies of podcasting and where to post information, but I will include a link to her website, to her Twitter and Instagram, so you can go follow her for even more coziness. All the appreciation to Marta. So thank you so much for talking about this book, recommending it, and thank you to everybody who's stayed with us, listened to this book review, this book chat, just all of the discussions about Mango, Mambo, and murder.
Thanks, folks. Bye.
As always, please stay safe, kind, and creative. And until next time, happy reading, writing, and sleuthing.
We're chatting cozies, cozy mysteries.